All right. All right, let's see what we want to talk about. Remember, guys, any of your recruiting questions, Q&A, uh, we're going to focus some more on that today. Obviously, we had some games go on last night, so we'll take a peek at those. But make sure to send in your recruiting questions in the chat. There are no stupid questions. So let's go over those. Zach, what's up, man? Did you see Pollard and Godwin get into it last night? Yeah, I did. I saw it. Well, I saw the video of it. There had to have been something else that had gone on. For me, there had to have been something else that had gone on in that game for Cliff Godwin to get upset like that. But I mean, that's baseball, man. Like sometimes you just get some things tick you off and you don't like it. And then, Pollard did the right thing, right? Sticking up for his team, sticking up for his player, came out and basically said, like, if you're going to say something, say it to me. But I don't, and then both of them get thrown out. So, like, then do they both miss their, weekend schedule, Friday night game? Like, unless they play a midweek game this week, it's just ridiculous. But yeah, a lot of upsets. We'll go over the scores real quick. Just when you hopped on the Arkansas, well, I mean, it's a midweek game. It's Lodi's from Alex from Florida State may have had the best game of the year. Let me pull up the chat for you guys. Just when I hopped on the Arkansas bandwagon. Again, like a midweek, like that's what I'm trying to tell you guys that, like, listen, you want to win all your midweek games, but like most teams are going to lose some midweek games. Like it's just part of the thing. And it doesn't have an overall, again, at the end of the year, it's going to have an impact on where you're seated and everything like that. But like the main focus is you got to just do well in conference, right? Doesn't mean the midweek games don't mean anything. They do, but like you're going to lose some midweek games. But let's pull up the scores from last night. Remember to send in your recruiting questions if you have any. Great year to be a Lodi's. Yeah, you're right. They're both balling out. All right, so West Georgia played decently well against Georgia, but that offense is just too tough to keep down. Wake dominated Elon. Georgia Tech dominated Kennesaw State. Coastal beat Clemson. Right? And I've talked about this, guys. Like, I think like Clemson's offense is just not scoring a whole lot of runs right now. And so, I mean, if you can put up like 7 or 8 runs, like you feel like you have a good chance to win against them. But Coastal, really big win for Coastal. With a good weekend this week, you can see them back in the top 25. Why do you think so many players are getting to the big leagues so quickly? Again, I think it's a whole change in the people that are running big league organizations, right? These guys don't believe that a player needs, 1,500 to 2,000 at bats in the minor leagues. They don't believe that. Now, that was the old school idea was unless you just purely dominate the league. If you do what Holiday did and dominate all the way up as a high school kid, and you're a top pick, that happens. But you're seeing a lot of like college bats and, like the kid from Florida State. It's going to be in the big leagues with the Astros this year. What is it, Cam Smith? What's his name? You guys can tell me. But Zach, I mean, the reason you're seeing that is because you have a bunch of guys in player development now and running the major league organization that never played in the minor leagues. And so they don't understand that, like, going straight to the big leagues is a massive jump. And, Cam Smith last year in A-ball hit a combined, he balled out, right? He did. And albeit it was in, 100 at bats. But what guys don't understand is like the whole, like, in pro ball, it's not about like, can you dominate? It's can you dominate over 150 games? So like 100 at bats is nothing. And so, I mean, I think I hope he does well, but like there's a reason in the years past that guys didn't just get straight to the big leagues after a, half season, less than half a season in professional baseball. And so that's the main reason. The main reason is that guys the people in player development and the people that are running the show do not believe you need to get a minimum of at least one full season under your belt just to see how you handle the failure. Because again, it's one thing to fail in the minor leagues when there's not a whole lot of, obviously there's not a whole lot of pressure to keep you in the lineup, but in the big leagues there is. I love to see the big teams get beat by underdogs. Arkansas will underperform this year like they have last few years. No, maybe. But that's why, Zach. And again, some of those guys will end up having success, but a lot of those guys, like for me, Cam Smith, you must think he raked in spring training. Again, don't get me wrong, he did really good. He did a really good job in spring. Struck out in like over 25% of his plate appearances. So to me, it's just like it may be a little too quick for him. But that's the now. It's funny how much different it is in just like the 6-7 years it's been since I played. Guys are just getting promoted like rapid fire. But let's get back to some of these scores. So if you're a Georgia Tech fan, this is a good, like this is exactly what you'd want to see going into the Clemson series. Clemson getting beat by Coastal, not scoring a lot of runs. Then Georgia Tech's offense put up 15 and in a run rule over Kennesaw State. Florida State beat Florida. Louisville got trounced by Cincinnati 12-2. Alabama barely beat North Alabama. Southern Miss got beat. North Carolina beat South Carolina. Oklahoma beat Oral Roberts. Missouri State took down Arkansas, like we've talked about. Vandy dominated Eastern Kentucky. Wofford destroyed Troy 14-3. Auburn beat South Alabama. Abilene Christian takes down Dallas Baptist. LSU destroyed Louisiana Lafayette. UCLA barely gets by Loyola Marymount. Irvine beats USC. Irvine playing really well right now. And then Oregon State beats Washington 5-2. But like looking at Cam Smith's baseball reference right now, he's got 130, 115 at bats in the minor leagues. So that's about, I mean, if you're playing every day, that's about, a fifth of a season, a little bit more than a quarter of the season, or a little bit less than a quarter of the season. So to me, you're just like, man, are you pushing him too early? But we'll find out. How about Jacksonville beating UCF? Yeah. Again, man, in the midweeks, you just gotta. There's going to be upsets. Liberty beat Virginia, so Virginia's lost 5 straight now. Boston College beat up on UConn 18-6. Pittsburgh beat Penn State 9-2. USC Upstate destroyed NC State 15-5. Virginia Tech beat Radford. Duke beat East Carolina. Duke is starting to play better. Duke is starting to kind of find their shape, find their form. Florida Gulf Coast beat Florida Atlantic. Jacksonville State beat UAB. New Orleans beat Tulane. Jacksonville snuck past UCF 3-2. Settle a debate for me and Canes about Chris Pollard. What's the debate? What's the debate, Zach? What's the debate about, Zach? You got to give me something. I said he's one of the best developers in college baseball, and Kane said that that's the lie of the century. No, I mean, we've talked about this, guys, but like, listen, Duke hadn't been to a regional until a few years into Pollard's tenure at Duke since the 1960s. Right, so Duke was always thought of as a place where it's going to be really tough to win in the ACC in baseball. And we've talked about the reasons why, right? Super high academic. The academic requirements to get in there, even for a scholarship player, are much higher than other places. It's private, so it's much more expensive than, a lot of these public schools. Like if you're getting recruited by Duke, you're getting recruited by some ACC, SEC like public schools that are way cheaper to go to. And then it just wasn't the it wasn't like a factory of people going to pro ball, right? They had some good players. Like I played against Marcus Stroman before Pollard's tenure. Obviously, he was really good, but they didn't have like a full team of just really good players typically. And Duke was always looked at when I was playing as a team you could go in and you could get a sweep against. So Pollard and Josh Jordan was a big part of that as well. Now who's now at LSU, like they found a way to get dudes to the program. And like you said, Zach, part of it is you got to develop when you don't have a kind of a pipeline of recruiting just really good players. You have to develop the guys you have and outperform expectations on you. And then as you start to win, you can start recruiting better and better players. And so, I mean, Pollard's done all of that. There's no question. At a school that was viewed at as a school that would almost be a death sentence for a head coach. Like you're if you go there and you're the head coach, you're not going to go anywhere else. You're not going to upgrade out of there. And Pollard's made it to where now Duke again, like they've underperformed this year, but they were top 15 preseason. Checked out your swing a heavier bat video. How does one get a non-drop 3-wood bat? I mean, you'd have to go to a website and order it. You'd have to order a custom bat. He was my number one choice before we settled for JD. And I think you guys have to understand. I think Miami, where Miami's at right now, again, like it's a rebuild right now for Miami. This weekend's going to be a big is the biggest series of the year for Miami, because if they can win the series, they're back in pretty good shape. But if you lose it or you get swept, it becomes very difficult to make it to the tournament, to the NCAA tournament. I feel like some of the players for smaller schools in nearby states are mad at larger schools for not recruiting them. Example is Nichols beating Southern Miss. I mean, there's always that. There's always like the guys who didn't get committed or recruited by Georgia Tech or Georgia, and they're playing at Georgia Southern or Georgia State or Kennesaw. Like they're trying to prove that, they deserve to be recruited at a higher level. But I think you're again, with how recruiting's changed over the next couple of years, you're going to see the mid-majors get better and better because they're going to be able to get better and better high school players, because high school players are starting to realize that unless I show up and I really ball out as a freshman, it's going to be tough to get playing time. Like you have to do what Alex Hernandez is doing at Georgia Tech, what Caleb Daniels doing at Georgia Tech, to be a freshman that sticks in the lineup, right? You have to be a not just, a contributor is someone who's having success, right? You can be in the lineup and not really be a contributor. And the freshmen that are getting opportunities and just doing okay, like they're getting benched and put, another guy's been put in. And if you are a freshman and maybe you have a portal guy in front of you, you have to wait for him to really struggle. And we've seen that a little bit this year. But with high school players understanding that it's just harder than ever to get on the field at a Power 4 school. I mean, look at University of Georgia, for example. I mean, their whole lineup is seniors and grad transfers. So, I think they have one freshman playing maybe. And it's not like totally uncommon across college baseball right now. So, when I was playing my freshman year, we had 5 freshmen in the starting lineup. And you're just never going to see that again at the Power 4 level. You're never going to see over half of your lineup as freshmen. Like the schools that have that are considered having a lot of freshmen playing now are like 2 or 3. If you have 2 or 3 freshmen in your starting lineup, you're like, man, they're young. And some sophomores and like even there's really not that many sophomores playing right now. Again, in the Power 4 level. Now, like there's some schools that have more than others, but generally speaking, It's like if it's mostly juniors and seniors that are playing at most of these schools. Um, and that's why one of the reasons why, if you're a Georgia Tech fan, like you're pretty ecstatic about the future of this lineup because you have one sophomore, two sophomore. Let's see here. Three sophomores, one freshman, two freshmen, four sophomores, five sophomores. Like the whole lineup is young except for Kyle Lodi's. So Georgia Tech's lineup is full is almost all of them will be back next year. So when you talk about the future of the program, Georgia Tech's offense is going to be probably one of the highest ranked preseason next year if they continue doing what they're doing right now. They've scored 243 runs in 25 games. Again, they're just getting it done. But that is way outside the norm. According to PBR, the freshmen all over the country are ready. Yeah, most of them are not. And again, that goes to recruiting as well. If you're an elite recruiter, like you can find the guys who are going to be really good as freshmen. That's not going to be an issue for you. And so again, you're seeing, like a guy like James Ramsey, Georgia Tech, like he's obviously done a good job recruiting these freshman hitters and these young hitters because they're all performing at a really high level right now. Can we get you to stream a game of MLB The Show 25? No. Nope. Sorry. You're going to have to go somewhere else for that. All right. So looking at the upcoming weekend, let's talk through some of these weekend matchups that are coming up. All right. So Tennessee, South Carolina. Again, this is a big series for South Carolina. Like if you get swept against Tennessee, you're 1-8 in SEC play. All of a sudden, the path gets very narrow. Even if you win the series 2 out of 3, you're still 3-6, which is a lot better. But again, you're still an uphill battle. Florida at Ole Miss this weekend. How bad does Florida need it? They need it very badly. Right. Let's remember last year you had LSU and Florida get in at 13 and 17 in the SEC. So Florida's 0-6 right now, 24 games left. To get to 13 games won, they have to go 13 and 11 over the remaining series. So they got to play slightly above 500 ball for the remaining part of the year. There's almost no room for, again, if they lose this series, let's say they lose 2 out of 3 and they're 1-8, all of a sudden they got to go 12 and 9 the rest of the way, meaning they have to win almost every remaining series. So this one is very, very important for Florida. Notre Dame against Florida State in South Bend, but, Florida State probably going to win that. If Florida doesn't win this series, they may not make the tournament. Yeah, if they don't win the series, it's going to get, and even if they win it, it's still going to be really difficult, right? But like if they don't win the series, it becomes very difficult, very difficult. Virginia Tech, Wake in Winston-Salem. We'll see how legit this Virginia Tech team is. Miami versus North Carolina. That's a big one for Miami, for the boys in the chat. I feel like Miami's probably got to sneak a win in this series to feel like they got a good chance of making the tournament. Again, if they lose it and they win one game, it's still possible, but it just gets very difficult. California, Louisville in Kentucky. In Louisville. Cal's been playing really good, though. That should be a really good series. Clemson, Georgia Tech. This is the best weekend series in the ACC. Going to be a really good one to watch. Auburn, Georgia. That'll be a fantastic game. Our series to watch. Purdue, UCLA. Yeah, I think Purdue's got a shot, man. They're 20-4. They're playing really well. Stanford, Virginia. I mean, this is again, Virginia is still like they're 3-6 in ACC play, so they're not like, it's not the start you wanted, but they're still fine in ACC play. But they got to get something going. They got to get a series win under their belt. It's 100% a must-win series. Pitt, Boston College, and Notre Dame won't help the RPI at all. You're right. I mean, it's as close to must-win as it can get. We would really only have Georgia Tech, Duke, and NC State to help the RPI. Yeah. Well, and it depends, Zach, on what you do in that Pitt, Boston College, and Notre Dame series, right? You get a couple sweeps in there, albeit maybe it's not super likely, but if you get a couple sweeps in there, you're back to being in really good shape. Does a high school player have to attend a college camp to get an offer? Does it ever happen without stepping foot on their campus? Seems like a lot of mail recently about summer camps. It definitely happens without you going to a camp, Sinetra. Again, some schools generally that's how it will happen, either on like a unofficial visit to the campus or at a camp. But they do give out offers without guys stepping, especially if they're really sold on the player. They'll make an offer over the phone or something like that. Afternoon, fellas. What's up, Dust? Just joined, but need to make some lunch. What you making, Dusty? Alabama, Oklahoma. This will be a really good series in the SEC. Got some really good SEC series coming up. Vandy, Arkansas. Texas, Mizzou. Texas could put themselves in really good shape here with a good showing against Missouri. LSU, Mississippi State. This is a big one for Mississippi State too, right? Like they're 1-5 in the SEC. A lot of teams this week, like big, let's see what you're made of type weekends. I got to get back to Atlanta for some varsity and Korean barbecue. I've never I've never heard someone say. I've heard a lot of people say the varsity because I love the varsity. As bad as it is for you, the varsity is about as a good a grub spot as you can get with those chili dogs. But Korean barbecue, I've never heard someone say, I got to get back to Atlanta for that Korean barbecue. We do have some good places, but maybe that's what we're getting known for now. I don't know. But you're the first person I've heard, Zach, say, I can't wait to get back to Atlanta for some Korean barbecue. Yo, what's going on? If not already said, we can shout out to Missouri State. Yeah, for the big win against Arkansas. Shout out Maryland. And Alex Lodis with the walk-off grand slam for the cycle. Anyone seen that before? I don't know if I saw he hit for the cycle. I didn't know he hit the walk-off grand slam. That's the kind of loss that can really affect you as a team, especially for Florida, who's, been swept 2 straight weekends in the SEC, and then you're in a tight game against Florida State, who you beat the week prior, and they walk you off with a grand slam. Like, got to find a way to recover. It was 9-2 Korean barbecue in Duluth. Was so good. I have not been there. Let's see here. It's got 5-star rating, basically, with 8,500 reviews, so it's got to be legit. This 35 minutes from my house. Well, Zach, I may have to try it out at some point. Also, that kid from Missouri State was 5 for 5 with 2 home runs. Talk about locked-in hitting. Yeah, you have those weekends in college where, like, you just feel like you can't get out. When you have that, like, ACC Player of the Week type weekend, and you get, like, 10 hits in 3 games, you're just like, you just feel like you can't get out. Is this usual midweek madness, or are we seeing more balance and disruption with so many small teams taking down top ranked teams? I think you are. It's a little bit of both, Buck. I think you're seeing, again, very normal on the midweek. Like, you're throwing your number 4 starter, and for most teams that means the game can get away quick for you every once in a while. Like your 4th starter is going to be, again, like your 4th starter. So any team, any Division One team that's solid in the country has a good night at the plate. Like you can all of a sudden get down big early. So that's always been a thing. But I also do believe you are seeing just more talent across the board at a lot of these mid majors. So it has kind of equalized the playing field some. Again, the real test of a team is how they perform on the weekend, just because that's where your best pitchers are throwing. Those are the games that really matter for the postseason. And ultimately, like, you make it out of a regional and you're back into a super regional, like the team with the best team usually wins, right? Unless you run into a team that's just on fire. So I think it's a little bit of both. I do think you're definitely seeing better talent at the mid-major level than really ever before. And part of that, as well, is now most of these mid-major teams have access to all the technology and stuff that the Power Four teams have. So it's a lot of different things. But if you can, man, if you have the tools necessary to develop players, right, you can play a lot better than people think you're going to play. We play Stetson tonight. All the pressure is on us. Absolutely cannot lose this game tonight. Yeah, I mean, Miami's in the situation now where, like, listen, those midweek games are going to be going to be very important for making the tournament. Because, like, let's say they beat UNC this week, and let's say Miami finishes at like 14-16 in ACC play. Then teams are gonna look at, or the committee's gonna look at, all right, what they do in the midweek. I do think Miami at the end of the day is going to have a very, very good strength of schedule, because they're playing Florida, they're playing Florida State, or they've played Florida State. You're playing a lot of those really good mid majors all across the state, so Miami's going to have a good track record of playing good competition. They just have to win enough games, right? They get nervous because they know they should win, and as soon as something goes wrong, yeah, and that's another thing. You do kind of see that now. It's not even that, Buck. I don't even think it's nervous because they should win. It's almost like this assumption that they're so much better than the other team that they don't really show up mentally. And then all of a sudden in the 7th inning, like, it's a 1-run game. So I don't think it's nerves as much on, oh yeah, we should dominate these guys. It's the assumption that, like, oh yeah, we're going to dominate these guys. We're way better. And then all of a sudden, like, in the 6th inning, you're down 4 runs. And it's too late at that point to lock in, generally. So that's what I see in some of these mid-major games. It's like, and I see this in the high school game as well, where you're facing a subpar team, or a team that's just, not nearly as talented as you. And what I always tell these, like, they're like, hey, what's this team supposed to look like? And I just tell them, if we play our game, we'll win. If we play down to them, they're going to be in it. They're going to be in the game. If we beat Stetson, it won't move us up in the RPI, but if we lose it, it will drop us down a lot. Yeah. And that's why the midweeks, again, like that's why you saw a lot of teams last year like, hey, we're just going to cancel that last midweek game. Because like the ramifications, like you said, Zach, it's like if you win, and even some cases, what you'll find at the end of the year is some of these teams, even if they win, their RPI goes down. So, and now that's not the case for like a lot of those schools in Florida and everything, but you do see some bigger teams that have like a midweek scheduled at the very last week of the year before the postseason. And like they're looking at it like, even if we win, our RPI is going to go down like a certain amount of points. So there's no reason to play it. Especially how Coastal Carolina jumped on Clemson last night. Clemson had no energy after that. Yeah, exactly. Now, I think most of the guys at Clemson know that Coastal Carolina is a really good team. So I doubt it was like, oh, we're going to dominate these guys. But I do think with Clemson, you are seeing a team that the offense is not that explosive. So if they're really not hitting well, they're just not going to score runs. I think they had 5 hits on the night. They scored 2 runs. So they're just not driving the ball as much as a lot of the teams in the ACC and the SEC are. They're still doing fine, right? Their offense is still kind of middle of the pack, but it's not an elite offense. So like this weekend against Georgia Tech, it's going to be really interesting to see how Clemson's offense performs against the Georgia Tech pitching staff, because Georgia Tech's going to score runs, and I think the series hinges on Friday. I think if Georgia Tech wins Friday, it's very likely they win the series. I think if Clemson wins Friday, it's much more likely that they win the series, because that is Clemson's Friday guy is the outlier on the weekend. Like he's an elite pitcher. And so he's the type of pitcher that can shut down an elite offense. So the question is, can Canuck dominate Georgia Tech's offense? Can he go deep enough to really let that offense try to get a little bit of a lead? Because as soon as he's out of the game, it's like all bets are off. So if he's out in the 5th inning or the 4th inning, then Georgia Tech's got a shot. But if Canuck pitches like he can, Dusty, Friday, aren't you concerned about Sunday? Well, I'm just saying that, like, let's just say for Georgia Tech, for example, Friday is their best arm by far on the weekend. And so if you lose Friday and then you have very, very suspect guys going on Saturday and Sunday, it becomes very difficult to imagine Georgia Tech winning the series. But like I said, if you win Friday, all of a sudden, like you feel like that Georgia Tech offense, one of those games, Saturday or Sunday, is probably going to put up a lot of runs. But if you're counting on that back-to-back, like Darden, Clemson's Sunday guy, has been solid. Hasn't nearly put up the numbers that Canuck has put up. He's striking out, I think, he has 1 less strikeouts in innings pitched, so he's not missing a whole lot of bats. And that's what Canuck does. Canuck's striking out almost 2 per inning. He doesn't walk guys. He doesn't give up a lot of hits. So, I mean, you're right, Dusty, that Sunday, I think, and that's kind of my point, is that if you have to hope, if you're Georgia Tech, that you can win Saturday and Sunday after you lost on Friday, that becomes a tough ask, I think. So I think the whole series hinges on Friday. Like whoever wins Friday, I think will probably win the series. And again, that is kind of true for a lot of them, but I just think it's very clear in this series. And hey, Texas A&M scored 7 against Houston Christian, back on track. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I mean, we didn't even talk about that, but A&M. Let's go down to the SEC here. A&M plays Kentucky, and Kentucky's, again, I mean, they've played fairly well. I'm not going to be streaming tonight, White House. See you later, man. Kentucky's 2-4 in the SEC, but they've played pretty well. Like they've been in, they've had chances to win those series. So I mean, if you are A&M, like this is the series to get back on track, because this is maybe the easiest, and you say easiest in like quotations, right? Series they have all year, maybe. Unless they play Missouri. Zach, is it in Atlanta or is it Clemson? It's in Atlanta, right? So that's another factor. You know, if playing at Clemson is really tough, that crowd is usually they have a massive crowd. They're loud. They're in the game. So it being in Atlanta, obviously, and that's the other part of Georgia Tech's schedule. We've talked about how they have a very favorable schedule. You know, they miss UNC, they miss Florida State, they missed Wake Forest, right? So they missed three of the best teams in the ACC. And then a lot of their best opponents they're playing this season in conference are at home. So they get Clemson at home. So it should be an interesting matchup there. So they have Clemson at home. Then they have to go to Stanford. So that's going to be a tough trip. Then they play Cal at home. Miami at Miami. Virginia at home. Again, they were preseason number 2. They haven't played like it, but you wouldn't be surprised by the time this series comes around, April 25th, that like Virginia's back and rolling. But they get Virginia at home. And then they play Louisville at home. And then Duke on the road. So a lot of the teams that are playing really well right now, Georgia Tech is getting on the road. Or sorry, at home. But Dusty's calling, if Georgia Tech wins the series against Clemson, they jump to the top 10. I don't know what you guys think. Yeah, and I get what you're saying, Dusty, because like I think the whole year so far for Georgia Tech, basically the caveat's been, listen, they've taken care of business. They've won all their series. Like they've won all their ACC series so far with a sweep. But like I think the caveat's been they still haven't faced like a really high ranked team yet. And so I guess like the question is then if they do beat Clemson, then they're legit, right? And they're maybe much better than even we have them ranked. So I guess you could see a big jump like that. How about Cincinnati run rolling Louisville? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, you've seen a lot of these mid majors playing really well. I think they would if they didn't lose those 2 games to Marshall. Yeah, no, you're 100% right. If they just lose 1 game to Marshall out of 4, like they're probably in the top 15 right now. But that weekend split of the 4 games was kind of like all right, we got to hold back our judgment yet. Kyle, will you be concerned if Georgia Tech gets swept and all 3 games look something like 10-8? I mean, I think if you get swept, you're concerned no matter what. But I feel like like if all three games are close and you just like couldn't find a way to win, I mean, you're upset with that getting swept, but you're also like Clemson's really good. I don't think you're like dooming and glooming after that, but you're also like, man, we should have at least got one, you know. So it's just a matter of how the games are lost or won in my mind. And that's what I've always said. That's what I've said about Clemson all year is that, like, the offense isn't really explosive, but like they've just found ways to win when they need to. So Clemson's going to be tough to put away. They're going to be tough. Like those final 2 innings of a game, if you got like a 2 or 3 run lead, you're going to be sweating because Clemson just has found a way the entire year so far to come back and win games. No concern about giving up 30 to 35 runs on the weekend. I mean, yeah, that would be concerning. But, you know, the thing is, like, you're going to have, unfortunately, you're going to have a weekend like that probably at some point. Right? And the question is, does that become the norm or is that just an outlier weekend? That definitely would be concerning, giving up 30 to 35 runs to Clemson's offense from what I've said so far. I don't foresee that happening. But again, I mean, like, you know, like, listen, Georgia Tech loses Friday, it becomes really difficult because your Saturday and Sunday guys have just been like, there's been no consistency. They don't go deep. They give up a lot of base runners, which is something that's really going to help Clemson's offense. They walk at a decent rate already, but if you're facing a team that doesn't hit a bunch of extra base hits, like, walks are just going to make them feel better and better. So, like, I don't like the matchup for Saturday, Sunday. I just don't like it. That's why I think Friday is very important. If you can beat Canuck or find a way to get, and you know, James Ramsey he'll have his guys working the counts. He'll be like, hey, we got to get this guy out in the 4th inning, right? That's a lot of times James' strategy against really good arms is like, get up there and fight, have a long at bat. I'm definitely taking the over in game 2 and 3. That's probably a good pick. It's probably a good pick. Who's better, Canuck or McKee? I think it's Canuck for sure right now. I don't think it's even close, to be honest. I think Canuck's one of the best pitchers in the country. I think McKee, again, I just don't think he's as polished as Canuck. He doesn't have nearly as good a changeup. I think the other stuff is very similar. But I don't think he doesn't have that equalizer changeup that can get lefties out and righties out. And he throws more strikes, everything. I mean, if you just look at the numbers, side by side, McKee's got 30 innings pitched. He's given up 23 hits, only walked 11. He's got 39 strikeouts. So his numbers are really good. Okay. His numbers are really good. Yeah, Dusty, are you calling any of the games this weekend? So Canuck, he's thrown 28 innings. So I'll say this. McKee has thrown more innings than Canuck. Canuck's thrown 31 2/3, so he's thrown more innings. He's given up 19 hits. Same amount of walks, 11 walks, but he's got 15 more strikeouts. So Canuck has 54 strikeouts and 31 2/3. Again, he's a strikeout machine. He's got better opponent batting average. So I think it's a good matchup. I think, like, if you're going to say, all right, who's got the advantage, starting pitcher over starting pitcher, I think you'd pick Canuck. But that's not to say McKee hasn't done really well so far this year. We need you and Kyle together in the booth for a game. I think they brought in some real talent for the ranked matchup. You know what's sad though is like when they do that, Dusty, and then you listen to the game and you're like, stats on McKee versus Canuck were way closer than Kyle anticipated. No, they're not. No, they're not. I mean, he's got 15 more strikeouts in essentially the same innings pitched. And he's given up less hits in more innings. Albeit not by a whole lot. But if you take into account his first couple starts, like his numbers were, he was still striking out a lot of guys, but he gave up a lot of runs. His last 4 starts, he's been like out of this world. So I think you got to take that into account too. Like he's really come on strong these last 3 or 4 starts. And then Sunday's just going to be a bloodbath because Sunday, Clemson hasn't had anyone that's thrown. Their Sunday starter has not thrown well, given up 16 runs in 17 innings. So Sunday will be a bloodbath. But actual ratings or the ratings from the ESA chat? Yeah, that's a good point, Buck. Huge. It would probably double the viewership of the broadcast if you guys all showed up. But only if we can chat them during the game. Yeah, for some reason I feel like they wouldn't allow that. I want to provoke a Kyle rant on air. Oh, I have those. Don't worry. I have those. Can someone make a video of Kyle rants from previous broadcasts? That would be a good one. That would be educational material for every baseball player across the country. They would be instantly better players if they just watched the whole video. That's a good idea, Zach. Maybe I'll get my video editor on it. Troy playing at FAMU is a weird game today. me see here. Yeah, it does sound like a weird game. Is it at FAMU? Yeah, that's one of those games, Zach, that like you look back and you're like, why did we play that? Even we won and it made our RPI go down. All right, guys, that's going to be it for me today. I got another game today.